Welcome, everybody, to episode 20 of the Hot Rod Blues podcast. I am your host, Sean Brereton, along with my buddies.
Javier Agustin, Bomber Steel Customs.
I'm Sean Young with Kingfish Metalworks, and tonight's special guest, this is the second Memphis Rodders podcast we've gotten to do. This is episode 20, like Sean said.
Yeah.
And if you guys watched, episode 8 is where one of these guys had actually joined the party. So tonight we have Larry Nolan and Marshall Robilio joining us, like I said, once again. So thanks for coming out, guys, or thanks for letting us in, Larry. That's what it's really the case.
Welcome. Yeah, we're out here at Larry's business. So
yeah, we're going to plug that. Nolan Audio Video Solutions. We're on location live.
That's right.
We filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Of Matt.
Matt, our producer, Matt. So I guess Marshall told you how much fun he had, and then he said you had to come on today. We finally roped you into this.
Yeah, well, I've been wanting to do this. I saw the other podcast that you did, but the way my business has been lately, I've been having to pitch in and work when I need to, drive trucks or whatever I had to do. So I missed that, but I watched it.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
That's good. Those guys did a good job for sure. So, there's one thing that I got to say about Rodders. They definitely have stories.
Well, it's the story. It's the stories that brings me back to the table today, actually. And I knew Marshall was going to have some, and he was talking about some before we started. And I was, save it all for the podcast, man, because everyone needs to know some of those stuff.
No doubt. And I guess before we really get into it, we're missing a guy here. So, yeah.
Where is Abbott?
Yeah.
Where's Abbott?
Abbott
If you guys looked around on your computer or phone and didn't see a skull cap from Boston, Mike's actually on vacation, so he took the week off.
Yeah, so we're going to give Mike a little grief. His wife kind of cornered him and pulled him away last minute. So we miss you, Mike. Be safe.
Yeah, he always does last minute vacations, doesn't he?
Yeah. I don't get to do that.
No, right?
Do that.
Well, I think when you're your own business owner, like sometimes that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it'll fit this week. Let's do that.
Exactly.
So Larry, you were kind of the missing piece of the puzzle last time we did this, because a lot of the stories were actually Larry Nolan stories, and we kind of caught it secondhand. So I can kind of recap what we've talked about in the past. I know that 41 Willys was yours and Eddie Wilbanks.
Right.
Tell us about that car, because that's an iconic gasser.
Well, it was called the Wicked Willis.
Mm-hmm.
And it was raced up at Indianapolis. And Bill Taylor bought the car. And he brought it back to Memphis. And shortly after he had it, he sold it to a guy named Howard Hughes. And
Howard Hughes?
Howard Hughes was in the mechanical contracting business, he and his family here in Memphis. And he had a blown small block in it with a hydromatic. And previous to that, he had another Willis, and it got away from him, and he got up into the bank on the right side on the hill and tore the car all to pieces.
Oh.
So he was wanting to replace it, so he bought that car. Well, I always loved that car, and I wanted it, and he decided to do something else. I don't remember what it was, but I bought it from Howard.
Wow.
And I took at that time, I didn't know a lot about blown motors. I knew about a naturally aspirated engine, but not too much about superchargers. So I put a bored-out 283 301 in it with the old small Hilburn injections, put a T10 Borg Warner in it, and it had a Chevrolet rear end in it, a 57 Chevrolet. I tore that rear end out 3 times. And I just said, this is not going to cut the mustard. So I bought a Dana rear end, tapered axle Dana from Leland Stanton.
Okay.
And I put that in the car. And Eddie and I, just back up a little bit, we became friends in the 7th grade at school. He was a year older than me, and he was 1 grade ahead of me. And we used to talk about cars and all this stuff, but how we got started was I had a Cushman Eagle motorcycle.
Yeah.
And he had a Cushman Allstate, one of those step-through scooters.
Yeah.
And we both got paper routes. We had commercials and pressimeter routes. And we throw papers every morning, and we throw papers every afternoon. And we would sit over there at Moon Mullins DX station at the corner of Hollywood and Central by the Armory. And we would fold our papers over there. He was gracious enough to let us do that. And Eddie and I shared a moon pie and an RC cola every day.
Nice.
And we threw papers. And that's how I first got to know Eddie, and that's how we started hanging around. And I'll tell you a little funny story, but he bought this Cushman, Allstate. Actually, Sears sold it, but it was a Cushman. And it had a straight front end on it. It went down as a piece of angled metal. Mm-hmm. And it was all bent up when he got it. So he didn't know, and I didn't know too much about beating it out and shaping it like Mike Abbott does, you know, and everything. So we just filled it with Bondo. And it was a big piece of Bondo.
The sculptor's choice.
Okay?
The sculptor's
We're going
choice.
down the street on Bunton there by Central, and they got these little bumps that right before you get to the intersection. And the light changed real quick, so I slammed on the brakes on my Cushman, Eagle, and he plowed right into the back of me. And I said, "Damn it, Eddie." I said, "You know, what are you doing?" And it knocked a big piece of that Bondo off, and it was laying in the street, okay? And we just got along. I mean, we just really got along. And we shared study hall together. We both went to East High School.
Okay.
And we shared study hall together in the library, and we would smuggle in these little small hop-up books. Mm-hmm. They were way smaller than the regular hot rod books.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what all the other kids, boys in high school, they slip Playboy magazine there behind their back, but they got hot rod magazine behind there.
But we would put that in our math books, our history books, and I'd sit across from him, and we'd pretend like we were studying that, but we were talking about hot rods.
Amen. Amen.
And back then, when about the only thing they did is built some cars, and they had Smitty mufflers. There wasn't much you could buy for a car.
Yeah.
No aftermarket stuff like they have now. So.
Yeah.
And then Eddie got a 52 Ford two-door hardtop, and it was a pretty nice car. It had a flathead in it and had a standard shift. And we would go to his home, and I got to tell you a little bit about how Eddie grew up, because this is sort of interesting, and I think I'm the only one that knows this. But I went to his parents' home where he lived. And his dad had a 51 Ford two-door sedan, and it was black with a cream-colored top. Well, Eddie and I weren't driving cars at the time yet, but Eddie had got his learner's permit. So we would borrow that car, you know, when we could, and we went to church together at Poplar Avenue Baptist Church there at the corner of Holmes and Poplar. That church is gone now. And Eddie and I like to drink beer. And Eddie's dad didn't like beer, I don't think. I mean, so we would hide it, and we'd get somebody to buy the beer, and somebody shook up a beer where we were picking it up on purpose, and we opened it in the car and sprayed the whole headliner down with beer.
Oh, my gosh.
So we thought, what the hell are we going to do now? So we got it, cleaned it up, and tried everything, and no matter what we did, it smelled like beer in there. And the first time his dad got in there, he says, "Who's been drinking beer in my car?"
Oh, mercy.
Of course, we were in trouble at that time. But we hopped up that flathead. We put 2 barrels on it and high compression heads. We put a cam in it, and it ran a lot better, but when the Chevrolets come out, they were so fast.
Yeah.
Even the first one, I mean, the 55. The Eddie says, "I'm gonna get a Chevrolet motor. We're gonna put that in that car." So I said, "I'm all in. Let's do it." So he found a Power Pack Chevrolet motor out of a 56 Chevrolet, and every day we would go home from school, and we'd be porting and polishing the heads, or we put a cam in it. We did all kinds of work on it and everything. And I don't want to talk too much, but there's so many stories I could tell you about Eddie.
That's your
he
job.
and I-
That's your
he and
job.
I-
That's your job today is to talk too much. So go. You just do that.
He and I made these wood ramps out of 2x12s because they weren't available much, to pull a car up on.
Yeah.
And so when we got that Chevrolet built, we decided we're going to take the exhaust system off, put a new exhaust system on. So Eddie was in the Tennessee Air National Guard, and he always wore these jumpsuits with the belt that tightened around, the outside.
Yes, sir.
And he was in the house. I was in the house. He was out there working on the car. I was talking on their house phone. And he was jerking on the exhaust pipes, and the car rolled off the lift.
Oh.
Well, when it came down, the muffler clamp grabbed that belt, and he was on a creeper. And off he went down the driveway. Creeper, everything. And he was spinning around like this, and I was going, oh, my God, and I'm in the house looking through the window.
Seeing him go down the road.
You weren't even outside.
So I run out there, and the car runs off in this culvert and drops flat on the ground.
Oh,
I
my
said,
God, he's dead.
God, it's done killed
He's
him,
dead.
Yeah.
Well, he somehow got out in that open area and comes crawling out and everything. He tried to. He couldn't get out. That belt was so tight around him, he couldn't breathe. It had spun around.
Oh.
I had to get a knife and cut the belt off, get him out from under the car,
It's amazing either one of you guys are still here.
Well,
You know?
and we got the car done and we got the motor in it, but Eddie shared a home, a very small home. He lived on Wilcox, which is off of Marne, right in front of East High School. And he had a very humble, small house. I think it was only 2 bedrooms, if I remember right. And he had a younger sister and a younger brother. And Eddie slept on a rollaway bed, and he rolled it out in the hallway and made it up every night and slept on that. Then that morning he would take the bedding off and fold the bed up and roll it into one of the bedrooms, and he'd go to school.
Wow.
That's the way Eddie grew up.
Humble beginnings.
Very humble beginnings.
Wow.
And he never really had much of anything.
Well, that kind of explains a lot because he is such a do-it-yourselfer. I don't think he's ever thought about buying anything if he could make it.
Eddie is a very special person.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but
About that, at that time, you couldn't buy a lot of that stuff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Or you had to order it or something, or you.
You made it.
But
Yeah.
if you knew somebody that had some equipment, and that's how I met them. Of course, they ran around with my nephew a lot, John the III. And I had a nice shop at my house. I had a lathe, and I had a mill. And
He
I
had a fabulous
bandsaw, and I had the welding equipment and everything.
Yeah.
And these kids would come over, and they'd want you to do stuff. And, I'd help them do it and everything. And there were a bunch of them. And one time, Eddie comes over, and I knew him, but I just really wasn't aware of him. And he said, I got a hole in my Triumph motorcycle gas tank. Can you weld it up? I said, oh, sure. Of course, I didn't know nothing about welding up a gas tank. So I had heard what you do. It was on the bottom, so we laid it on its side and filled it up with water.
Yes, sir. That's how I do it.
We'd braise it up. And every now and then we ended up since you'd put the torch up by the where the filler cap was,
filler
and
cap.
it'd go foo and scare you to death.
Soft
But at
gas.
least it wasn't sealed, and we welded it up. And that Eddie was so good at that. I said, I'm gonna do it, but then you're gonna have to do it. I'm gonna show you how to do it. And then of course he would come around a lot and help us with the hot rods and stuff like that. But that was really my first time when I really was aware of Eddie and how special he was. His mind is so imaginative.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine. And you got to do some kind of a job, and he figures out the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I we went out. I think it was before Christmas a year or two ago, and it was a trip that me, you, and Mike went out.
Yeah.
And he was explaining how he was making those knockoff hubs for that Cobra he's got.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just thinking, who makes that? You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess he does. You know.
Yeah.
He made that whole rim.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I wish I had pictures of that. We'll see if we can find that. You might have taken someone.
I don't know if I took them of that or not. I did take photos out there that night, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
gotta look back.
how would I? You know, if you told me I had to make that, I don't know what I'd do. I'd panic. You know, but yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, it's probably all, you know, all the stuff that Larry was saying too is probably one of the reasons that he's kind of a hoarder too. You know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Well, he like when we finished that motor for the Ford, we got it in there, and he said, "I think I want to make a floor shift," and he got a muffler clamp and some rods and everything, and I remember the cost was like $3.80 to build a floor shift, and he made one, and it worked. I put one in my car. I had a 52 Ford convertible, and he had a two-door hardtop. That's my first car. But anyway, you'll get a kick out of this story. But we get the Chevrolet mounted in the car, and he and I could not figure out how to put the distributor in. We didn't know enough about how a motor ran. We just did not know. And so we tried to get it to crank, and it would backfire through the carburetor and everything else. So Eddie says, well, let's try to push it down the street. And he said, Larry, you get in there and you drive the car, and so you get in the other car, and we'll put a tire between the bumper, and we'll push it down the street. So Eddie gets on there, and he sits up on the front where the windshield wipers are.
On a
He's
cowl.
got his feet on the inside of the head.
Oh my God.
The no hood on the car.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, this is another near-death experience.
And we're pushing
Go
it
ahead.
down the street, and it's trying to crank, and all of a sudden it goes, wow, and it blows up, and it blew a big ball of flame out, and he turned around and looked at me in the car, and his face was black, and it burned all the hair off the front of his head. That's not how he got bald, but, you know. Anyway,
it probably didn't help it any though.
we just couldn't figure that out. And when Eddie started helping me with the Willis car, I had a 57 Chevrolet two-door hardtop. That's what I started with, a D-gas car.
Yes, sir.
And I ran it for a while, and I took the straight bench seat out and put bucket seats in it and put a different hood on it and some other stuff. You know, it was a nice car.
Would this have been back at Halls or at Lakeland?
No, well, Eddie and I started racing at Halls.
Okay.
And I had that Ford. I raced it up there. And what you did, you didn't have a separate race car. You raced the car you drove every week or every day. And that's what you do. You go out there, and we welded leg pipes on there that you could unbolt. You have a straight exhaust. We thought that was going to help. It didn't help much, but
It sounded good.
and we'd take the hubcaps off and throw them in the trunk, and we'd race the cars like hell up at Halls, and then we'd put everything back on, and we'd drive them to work
Monday
all
through
week.
Friday.
And then we would make some modifications during the week, and then we'd see how much better we ran on the weekends. You know, very few guys had dedicated race cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were in that category. Eddie and I were in that category. And then when we got the Willis, when I got the Willis, he wanted to partner with me, and we became Nolan and Wilbanks.
Yeah.
And that car,
About how old would you have been around this time? About how old would you have been around that time?
I was 17.
Okay, so you're still in school?
Yeah.
Or
I was 17 when I bought the Willis,
Okay.
and Eddie was 18.
cool.
And
That's unbelievable.
so we were pretty young, and we
Yeah,
had
yeah.
we built a trailer out of pipe, and for the car and everything. And then Bill Taylor was good to us because he would give us match race money all the time to match race somebody. Like we raced a guy with a Comet that had the rear end moved way up, and the car would do wheel stands, and Willis did wheel stands. You know, it
Yeah.
would pull the wheels out of the hole, and when you shifted into second gear, it would pull the wheels. You know, everybody got a big kick out of that. You know,
Amen.
that was big stuff. Had a straight axle in the front of it and everything.
Yeah.
I've got some pictures of it and everything. I got a picture of Eddie and I standing there with it.
With the jackets.
Yeah, with our jackets on.
Oh,
The first year that they wanted to take that car to Indianapolis,
Uh-huh.
his daddy came over to me and said, I want you to look after my kid. He said, you know, they think a lot of you, and you've helped them all with the car and everything, but I'm really leery about them taking it up to a national meet and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, they going to have to take care of me because I was crazy as I could be. but I remember, of course, they came by the house and we left together. They had their car on their trailer and we had mine. And his brother Denny had just gotten a Honda 250 Scrambler. And boy, he was really a rider. And we're going down Midnight Hall and then out Summer Avenue. And man, he's wheeling the whole time.
Whoa.
and they did, and we all went to Indianapolis, and they had a good time. And I got them back in one piece. I couldn't have done anything better than that.
So what was the age gap at that time?
Pardon?
What was the age gap between? So you're
15 years. Let's see. You're 80.
I'm 79.
Yeah. Well, I'm 94. It's 15 years.
yeah.
Okay.
So
But
how?
I actually, my two nephews ran around with them a lot.
Yeah.
In drag racing and everything, and I associated with that age group a lot. I mean, it was more them then.
See,
Well, he had a-
he's like me. I hang around with a younger group.
Yeah.
you know?
I'm
No,
150
you're not. No,
years.
you're not.
I'm
150.
150 years old.
Marshall had a B car. It was a T model B car, and it had a small block Chevy in it with a hydromatic. And John P., his nephew, and I were very good friends, and I helped him a lot in my developing career to get to the point that I finally won the nationals. But
Yeah.
I got sent home several years there. Didn't do so good, and anyway, John P. won the nationals in '66, and I was right there helping him the whole time.
But to your
And,
credit, though, Larry, you were a national record holder.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I
What
did.
year was that?
What
What year?
That was 67.
67.
Yeah, and I
That's
held
pretty
the
unbelievable.
held the national record for a good while. As a matter of fact, the car that I won that with was a different car. You know, so I'm trying to transpire to the next car that I had. So
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
The Willis was a good car, and it won me a lot of money. I won competition eliminator just about every weekend out there. I
Wow.
beat Preston Davis, and most of them. He had a C dragster, and there was a guy named Joe Mundy, and Marshall. I had to run against him
Oh, wow.
because he was B altered and I was A altered, so we were in competition eliminator.
Wow.
You know, but anyway, I decided I wanted to go faster. So I sold the Willis, and I built Johnny Albright on Summer Avenue right there at, what is that cross street there?
See it Waring? Summer and Waring?
No. Tillman.
Tillman.
Summer
That's
and
right.
Tillman.
Okay.
Tillman and
Right
Summer.
next door to Small
And
Town
Johnny
There's a
had
motorcycle shop
a chassis shop there, and he had a hard chrome business. He did hard chrome work
Oh.
with a partner that he was with. Well, he built cars, and he would he had a trailer where he'd advertise his cars. He'd have some chassis on there for altereds or drag cars or whatever they were.
Yeah.
And he'd go from track to track selling chassis. That's
Okay.
what he did. And I talked to him. I said, Johnny, I want to build an A altered, and I wanted you to build me a tubular frame. And we designed the front end and everything. And I must have had my head up, my rear end, because I put a small block Chevrolet in that car. And I had some inclination that I was going to run high gear only with a small block. That's the dumbest thing I ever did in my life.
Yeah.
It was terrible. And it bogged something terrible. It wouldn't run right. And so by the end of the year, I had put a 427 in it.
There we go.
And I said, well, this is going to be better. Well, it was better, but it still bogged about halfway down. It would bog down, and then it would start to pick up. So Bobby Anderson worked for Coleman Taylor, and Bobby and I were good friends. And he called me. He said, Larry, I think I got the answer for you on that, on what to do with that thing. He said, they've got this new B&M set up for with a clutch, and they say you use a Mopar torque flight transmission.
Okay.
And you cut the bell housing off, and where the pump is on the front of it, you bolt an adapter on, and you change out the shaft to a clutch shaft, and you bolt it onto a standard bell housing and motor.
Oh.
And I said, well, how does it work? He said, well, you clutch it out of the hole.
So you don't
You
have
can
a
come
torque
out at
converter.
7,000 RPM if you want to.
Wow.
And then you just shift it twice, second
Okay.
and third.
Straight line.
Okay.
So I said, let's build it. So he helped me build the transmission. And at the time, I was pretty tight with Bill. And Bill gave me the key to Lakeland and told me, go out there and test it and see what you want to do. And this was about 2 weeks before the Nationals in '68. And I went out there and I got it on the line and took off. And I said, holy shit. I said, this is the deal right here
Yeah.
now. This is the deal. So John knew the car was running real good. I didn't actually get much of a time on it because I was going to the Nationals.
Yeah.
And so we got up there, and I rolled off the trailer and broke the national record the first run down the track.
Whoa.
The record was 9:20-something, and I went at 8:99.
Oh, mercy.
That's
And
When you
Smashed.
bypass all the unnecessary
So-
parts, you go straight to the.
yeah.
So I was set, and the A altered class was a tough class. Now, I mean, I had to go, I think, 4 rounds to get to the end of the deal. Well, there was a national record holder by the name of Billy the Kid, and he was from Canada, and he had a Chrysler, and he had a torque flight, but no clutch, just a torque flight, and he had the national record at the time, and I beat this guy the first round, and then I lined up with him, and I said, oh God, here I got to beat this guy if we're going to win the thing. And his dad come over there and tried to psych me out, telling me all this stuff and everything, And anyway, so I lined up with him, and I've got pictures of the race that came off of a film. They filmed it. He pulled a giant wheel stand, and I clutched my car, and I was gone. And I beat him pretty good.
Yeah.
And
When he came down, he was off, no longer king of the mountain.
yeah. And so I had a partner that helped me with the car. His name was Rick Mendius, and Rick and I went to high school together too with Eddie. And he worked at Richards, and he was in the art department, and he had access to the shop out there and all the polishing stuff that they polish all those processes. What am I trying to say?
Prosthesis.
Oh, prosthetics.
Yeah,
Prosthetics.
like hip joints
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
prosthetics.
Well, he took my wheels and polished my wheels like
Surgical to the surgical standards.
and he fixed that car up, and lo and behold, I can't remember how many cars were there, but we won best appearing car that year.
Wow.
Well,
And he did a cartwheel out of the trailer when he found out that we'd won that.
should have been handing out business cards.
Yeah,
So
and
Larry-
so we got to make a lap down the track with the
The prettiest
and we've
car.
got the best appearing
Yeah,
car,
that's right.
Well, you're going to laugh at this, but the story you just told is similar to a story that Greg Bourne told. Do you remember his dad had a T that had the front end chromed by, I believe, the same guy that did yours.
Surgical. No, that's the same guy. Yeah. And he to make extra money out the back on the weekends, he would do that high polish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is the same guy. This guy's been running game on the side for.
No doubt.
Sure has.
Came up in the wrong generation, boys. I'm telling you.
But
A bunch of shiny hips walking around Memphis.
and of course, after that time, when we came back, one of my close friends was killed at Lakeland, and a car blew up and covered the guys that was driving the car. He was called the Raging Cajun. He was from Louisiana, and he couldn't see. And a lot of my friends were down there. I don't know if Marshall was down there or not, but
You talking about Gene McClanahan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was on the other side of the hill there, and waiting to come back, because when that track was first opened, you had to wait till a certain time, and then everybody came down the drag strip.
Okay.
Later, they put a return road in, so you could come back down the side, and the races could still be going on.
Gotcha.
But I was down there waiting to come back, and this guy blew this motor and covered his whole face and goggles there with the oil. He couldn't see. And Gene was down there waiting to come back with some other guys. I'm not exactly sure who was down there. I think Tommy Calhoun was down there.
There were a bunch of them standing around a car. And everybody saw him coming, and everybody scattered.
Everybody went different directions.
Except Gene. It was like a
Stuck.
squirrel in
Deer in
head.
headlights.
They couldn't decide what to do. That's what they figured. Of course, everybody else would take care of themselves. And when they crashed, they didn't know he was
Involved.
was involved. And then when they got over there, and then they saw, and of course,
Yeah, he was gone.
He ran the wrong way in the car.
he didn't move hardly at all.
He just stood there
They
and
crashed in.
took him.
He
Of
was
course.
sandwiched between a parked car and the race car.
All this stuff is coming over the top of the hill, like tires and all parts and everything. And I saw it all, and I said, God, what the hell has happened?
Yeah.
So I ran down there, and I ran over to where he was, and everybody was trying to get me away from there. And I said, what happened? And he said, Gene. And he was very severely injured, okay?
Yeah.
And there was no way you could do anything for him.
Mercy.
But that sort of really bothered me. And then we went to Nationals, and Larry Coleman had a guy driving his funny car.
Yeah.
What was that guy's name?
Was
Anyway.
it Delmer Hynell?
Hi-
I think that was his name.
What?
Delmer Hynell.
Hynell, yeah, something like that. Anyway, he went off the Eddie. Larry had a Logie car, it was a really nice, funny car.
Yeah.
And when he went off, the car went to pieces, and it killed the guy.
Oh.
He was killed at Indy, and Larry wanted me to go down there and help pick up all that mess, so I went with him down there. But
Yeah.
I saw some things that I'd rather not have seen
Yeah.
Yeah.
at both places. So I just sort of
I imagine those
decided, in the bracket racing was coming in.
Yeah.
I had no interest in bracket racing.
Yeah.
And I had no interest in running on 8th mile.
Eddie said the same thing.
I mean,
last
How
time he
could
was
I?
on.
How
Yeah.
could I compare my speed in a quarter mile
Yeah.
to somebody in an 8th mile?
Right.
And they were mostly outlaw tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, they
Right.
raced at Collierville. I think I don't know if,
George Ray's.
Holly Springs was there or not. I don't know. It might have been. But I had no interest in a quarter mile because we were racing the points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were going out of town. We went to Stewart Robbins, Georgia. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And we went several places trying to get
Bristol,
the points that we needed to get for the NHRA. So
Did you have to have so many points in order to be able to go to nationals?
that's
It's like
it.
qualifying.
Yeah.
Well, Gilbert and I won that points thing then.
Yeah.
I guess it was in 1959. It was several years earlier. And it was a points thing. And you got points if you won locally. Then you could go regionally and you would get points.
Yeah.
And there wasn't but two classes, though. There wasn't all these classes.
Yeah.
There was hot, which was any car that was modified, a dragster or a roadster or a coupe, and it was stock.
And that's it.
And boy, you really had to hustle to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we got down to Laplace at the final run. And this was a 32 highboy steel. Originally the car was famous as Slowpoke. It was one of the 50 in the book. It was one of the 50 greatest hot rods. It won the Oakland Roadster Show 1 year.
Wow.
When that really meant something, and it had run at
Slowpoke. Okay.
It had run at the first NHRA Nationals in Great Bend, Kansas, and then it ran at the second at Kansas City. Well, it ended up Bill Taylor and Pat Collins bought it and ran it at Detroit, I think in 1959.
Yeah.
No, it was in 1958 or so. And it broke. And they were disgusted. Gilbert Bug and I bought it, and we rebuilt it. And that was the car that we ran.
Nice.
And the final run came down to us and the guy that was in the second place.
Wow.
And we built the car for fun. And we always drove. He drove it, I drove it. He drove it, I drove it. He drove it, I drove it. The final run,
Would you?
he chickened out.
He made you do it?
Now, the car had a quirk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had I think, 283 in it. And we ran 2 gears, second and high, in old 4 transmission. And every now and then, if you didn't wind it up enough, and it'd bog a little when it came out, I could feel it when it was going to do it, and I'd milk the clutch. It would affect the time just a minor amount.
Yeah.
Gilbert couldn't do it. If it bogged on him, he just went
Stutter.
and that was it. Well, anyway, right before the race, and he's buckled in the car and everything, somebody blows and they got to clean the strip.
Yeah. Enough time.
He
for
took
him
it
to
as a
chicken
sign
out.
to get out.
Yeah, and then Gilbert, no. And finally he said, I ain't doing it. If you don't drive it. Of course, I just wanted to drive it so bad I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I'll
Well,
do it.
anyway, so he finally talked me into it. Well, I had a helmet on with a flip-up visor. And I would smoke a cigar until I was ready to go, and I'd put the cigar in a clip down in the belly pan, and I'd let the visor. Well, boy, when I got the flag, I yanked that guy so far, I knew I'd win. I said, there ain't no way he's gonna catch me. And
you
I
pick
looked
your
back,
cigar up?
and I couldn't see him. So just as I crossed the line, I flipped that shield up.
Yeah.
The wind blows back, and it hits my head on the roll bar. It cracks the helmet and knocks me goofy. Now, it didn't knock me out,
Oh my gosh.
but it knocked me goofy. Well, the strip wasn't very long, and at the end of the strip, they had cut out a section in the woods, and they just had gravel there. Well, man, I ain't even thinking about slowing down, and then I halfway wake up, and I said, man, that end is coming down pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I started getting on the brake. We just had brakes on the rear, and it wasn't a foot brake. You pull a thing.
Handbrake.
Well, I'm pulling that thing, and finally I lock the tires up right when I get on the gravel, and it just spins around.
Oh.
Well, they send the ambulance and all that stuff down there, and I was really embarrassed.
You were smoking your cigar when you
Yeah.
got there.
Yeah. As long as you had the cigar when you got there, or when they got there, it's all that.
Yeah, I did. No, we had carried. Somebody had given us two big Cuban cigars, and we were always saved them. Now we had on the dashboard of the tow car, we had a box of those little short cigars from New Orleans that we call El Trellis, Conchitas,
Yes.
and we always had one of those in our mouth, and we were saving these big Cubans for when we
fat
won
lady
something.
sings, yeah, the
And
big
no-
deal, the
and
big
boy,
deal.
and then when we win, man, we poked in them cigar that we both got dust. Dizzy, we couldn't take very many. It was gonna knock us out.
That's funny.
The other thing, when we would go on the road, Marshall had that 59 Chevrolet panel truck.
Yes.
It was yellow.
I've
And how we would travel is we'd travel in fours. and 2 guys would be in the front seat, and 2 guys would be on cots in the back seat. And the 2 guys in the back slept, and then when they got tired, we switched. And that's how we drove long distances when we went. And Marshall had took and welded something on the exhaust manifold, and we would fasten these pork and beans onto
heat your dinner up while you're driving.
Exhaust manifold.
No, we were
and
always.
we would fart all the way where we were going and all the way back.
No.
You know,
We were always late going somewhere, and I mean, we went everywhere. We went to Amarillo, we went to the Toledo, to running that points thing and everything.
Yeah.
And you never had time to eat. And of course, we had the grocery store, and I'd bring that sweet Sue chicken and dumplings and that barbecue and the candy. We'd leave it on the manifold, and then we'd stop somewhere in the middle of the morning and run in if a store was open.
And get some bread.
And then a lot of times the bread man would leave the bread out front.
They knew you were
We'd just get a couple of things of buns and leave a couple of bucks there, and we'd stop and eat on the road.
Hot rod bread.
I got one little funny more story to tell about Eddie, because I know he's going to listen to this. But it's when we had the Willis, and we had a 4-speed in there, and we figured out that if we could slam shift that thing, we could increase the speed, and ET. But we didn't know how to set the transmission up. So at the time, Herb McCandless was running. They called him Mr. 4-Speed.
Yes, sir.
And I called Herb up, and he said, I'll come over there and show you how to grind those synchronizers on that transmission. So he came over there, and Eddie and I were getting ready for him to come, and we wanted to drain the transmission fluid and pull the transmission out real quick. So he put it on the bench. So we looked around, we didn't find anything to drain the transmission in. So I was at the time, I was just fixing to move out of my dad's house, because he told me when I got 18, I had to get my own place and move out. So I was fixing to move, and he had a little shop back in the back, and Eddie put on, I said, Eddie, what about this can? And it was a lacquer can of lacquer. But it had no cap on it. It was open, and it had been sitting on the shelf for God knows how long. I don't know how long it had been sitting there. So Eddie said, well, here, let me see that can. And he grabbed a torch, and he grabbed some of those goggles. You know, the ones that had a little chain in between there?
Yeah.
I think they still make them. And he was haunched down behind the wall, cutting the top of the can off. All of a sudden, boom! I mean, it was the most god-awful explosion I've ever heard. And I went around there, and he was laying against the wall with the torch going, and one goggle was up here and one was down here. And he just had this blank look on his face, and I said, what in the hell happened? He said, that damn can blew up. And I said, where'd it go? He said, I don't know. And we looked for that thing, and it blew it up almost like a basketball. And it was back in the back of the shop, back where we got it from, up on the shelf. It took us about 15 minutes to figure out where it went to.
Oh, mercy.
But I want to talk about this guy a little bit.
Well, wait, let me tell you all about. We wouldn't caravan, but we would all go the same way, and we'd run into each other on the highway and everything. And a lot of time we would collect. Well, one year when we had all gone up to Indy, and I don't know who did what, but we had all worked so much, and we were so tired, and finally coming back, you get kind of silly.
Yeah.
And you really get silly.
Yeah.
Well, they were in a van that they had borrowed from Jimmy Dobbs, Hull Dobbs.
Yeah.
Our good buddy, they called him Bobby Johnson. He and Bill Fight ran a dragster. They were on an open trailer. Gilbert and I, we ran that 27T, and we had our trailer. Who else was with us? Bill Williams, he had run a Ralph Hughes and Bill Freeman had run a 6-cylinder, And I think it was a B or C dragster.
It was
but anyway, there was 5 or 6 of us.
The D dragster.
And there had been a little drinking going on there. Well, anyway, the way Bill, Fight, and Hoot drove, man, they were like maniacs. God damn, they would just fly. Well, they get way ahead of us. Well, we're in Kentucky. Coming, I guess it was I-65, where the corn was big.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, we're coming down, and as everybody comes under this underpass, there's Hoot and Fight. They got corn cobs in there throwing them at the truck.
And they're breaking our windshields out.
Oh yeah. Hey man, putting a dent in the side of my truck and everything. Well, then everybody stops and gets their corn cobs.
Oh yeah.
And then we're having a running
Game
battle.
on.
Wow.
We're having a running battle. You know, I mean, it was
a bottle
serious.
rocket war.
It was serious.
Yeah.
Well, right before we get to the Tennessee line, they got a roadblock, and they stop us all.
They heard about you.
Yeah.
The corn cobbers from
And
Memphis.
there's 2 cops, and they're standing out there, and I guess, I know it was 4, it was probably 5 or maybe 6 cars that they had stopped there. We're all standing there, and we're all laughing and everything because it's so funny. And they telling us, they're telling us, you know, this is serious, guys. You can't do this. And Hoot was half lit. He says, you think you're going to arrest all of us?
Did they?
And that kind of, one cop looked at the other cop, and one cop finally said, look, Tennessee is less than 10 miles down that way.
Get there.
So they let us go. Of course, they let us go.
They make you swear not to throw anything else at each other when you left?
Yeah. God.
So, Larry, I've heard a story about you and I believe Eddie working a construction job together, and you were driving your pickup truck every day with Hilburn injection on it.
Yeah, Eddie was a year ahead of me. He got a job at J. Jones Construction Company. They were a major construction company throughout the United States. And they were building the William Boyd Hospital that University of Tennessee owned downtown across the street from the old Baptist Hospital that's now been torn down. And Eddie got on down there, and he was making like $2.36 an hour, and the minimum wage was like $1.
Yeah, he was
And I thought, yeah, I got to get a job down there, you know. So I went down there, and they wouldn't hire you unless you were 18. And so Eddie was 18. He got a job. Well, they wouldn't give me a job because I was only 17, you know. And I kept begging the guy and I asked him, and he said, you know, you're the stubbornest guy I've ever seen in my life. He said, here's a hard hat, go to work. I'm going to put you down as 18. So Eddie and I worked there throughout the summer months, you know, we worked down there. And I had a 57 Chevrolet station wagon, and we were coming home one afternoon from work, and he rode with me a lot. And this guy, the black guy, passed me up, and I didn't like the fact that he passed me up. He was in an old Oldsmobile, and it was blowing oil all over the place. And so I floored that thing to try to get around him. Well, it was a northern car, and the the throttle pedal went through the floorboard. And I looked in the rearview mirror, and it was tumbling down the street. Well, of course, the rod was still there, so it was okay, you know. I drove it like that for a while. Wow. But, you know, that was a lot of money back then, $2.36 an hour when minimum wage was, you know. I said, sign me up, man. You know. And that's how I learned how to cuss and everything. Because, you know, they would hand me that effing board. Get that GD thing out of here, you know. And I left that job, and that's what made me start cussing.
New vocabulary.
Yeah.
It was rough work, though. It was hard work.
Yeah.
It was,
when I went into the Navy, that's where I learned to curse.
Yeah.
It was kind of the deal.
I mean, we would carry 4x8 sheets of 3/4-inch plywood soaked in oil up 2x4 ladders.
Wow.
A sheet at a time. And you would balance by using your shin on the next step.
Right.
And
nope.
we did that all day long.
I don't care how much you pay me. I am not doing that.
And they had little or nothing automated to do that with. So you had to handle all that stuff yourself.
That's a hard ass job.
It was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why was it coated in oil? Why were they coated in oil?
Water. They didn't have marine grade. Probably it's water.
Well, there were spandrels, steel spandrels that were shaped, like this, and you had to put them on the end of the wall, and then the plywood went on top of that, and then they would pour the concrete on that.
Oh, like a
and
form.
then when you tear it down from the bottom, you would take the spandrels out and pull the plywood off, and that lets the plywood release the oil
Okay.
from the concrete.
Okay.
And that's how they made the buildings.
Gotcha.
Wow.
And
That's cool.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I didn't know either. So I was like, why has it got oil on
but
it?
they had I fell off the 4-story, and thank God I had a black guy working with me, and he was new, and he didn't know much about what to do. And when you walk that wall with those spandrels, they had rebar sticking up, so you had to roll your pants up, so your pants didn't get hung on the rebar, and you trip and fall.
Right.
Yeah.
And he didn't know what he was doing much, and he stumbled and pushed me with that thing, and I went off the wall. And I looked down the minute I was going down, and there was a big pile of sand there. Oh. And I landed in that sand and kind of tumbled down there and got up and walked away.
Whoa.
So I was really lucky.
It's like
but
early days of
Eddie
parkour.
and I, we just been such good friends.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, is this the time that Eddie met his wife? How tell us that story, because she is a pretty dynamic lady.
There's some stories about him I can't tell.
Okay.
But he and I double dated a good bit.
Yeah.
And his wife's name's Betty, and he was married in '63, 1 year before I got married in '64.
Okay.
He did everything 1 year before you did.
He dated his wife. He played the field a little bit, and he dated his wife about 4 years, I guess, and then they got married. And I dated my wife 5 years. And funny thing about it is we're both still married to the same girl.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And
Not funny. That's awesome.
Eddie and I told him, said, mine's 58 years, his 59. So
Mercy.
Eddie and I told those girls, they said, look, there's not going to be a divorce. Might be a homicide, but no divorce. So we've been together ever since. But
Mercy.
I think most of the real early Rodders, it was more than just a club. They were all had families.
Yeah.
And even at the meetings, at the early meetings, the guys would meet on Sunday nights. And then the girls would usually meet at somebody's house and play cards.
And they'd hang out.
Yeah.
Bunko or whatever it is and everything. And then after the meetings, a lot of the guys would go over with their wives and they would stay a lot of times till 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. It was kind of like a party.
But they had
it
Christmas.
Was really, and everybody
Yeah.
was just about everybody. Of course, not everybody, but just about everybody. And it was something there more than just the love of cars. It was people that had exactly the same interest.
Yeah.
And we cared about people, and the morals were good and everything. Now, I'm not saying you didn't take a drink or something like that every now and then, 'cause that's not really bad.
Right.
In fact, now I guess we could be smoking a little pot because that's kind of legal.
Kind of, yeah.
We didn't do that. We didn't do that.
Matt's from Arkansas. We were talking about that earlier.
There was a fella in the Rodders at one time. His name was P.J. Nevels, and he had a C dragster, and he had a lot of trouble with it. Couldn't get it running good and everything. And he was married to a really beautiful girl. I remember that. And anyway, he said I was having trouble with his car, so I ran against him in competition eliminator. I said, bring the car over Saturday, and we'll work on it. So he brought it over there, and he had something wrong with the fire on the distributor or the mag, and I found it and I fixed it. And so Sunday he went out there to try it out, and he took off, and the car just ran like really it's supposed to run. And he was so excited he got back in the car and came back towards the starting line, and he was going too fast and he couldn't stop.
Ugh.
And he went off the end of the strip, went up in the trees, and it killed him.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, it was a throttle leakage, hit a bell crank,
It went past center.
and it went past
Oh,
center
it flipped over.
and
Yeah.
like rattled.
He had a spring on it and it went past center.
Wow.
But Marshall, I want to talk a little bit about Marshall because he taught me and mentored me and taught me everything that I know about cars. I mean, about motors. The fact that I told you all I couldn't get the distributors in right, and Eddie couldn't get them in right. Every time we'd get the motor apart and go back out the drag strip, we'd have to get him, or there was another guy named A.J. Lancaster that he knew how the motor ran, and he would get the distributor in there right for us, you know. And Marshall, I was working on the Willis one day at home, and Marshall called me. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm working on a car." He said, "Can you come over here?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "What's going on?" And he said, I'll tell you when you get here." So I went over there, and he had a small block Chevrolet, and he had it completely apart, okay? And he was assembling it, but he wanted to show me the inside of the motor and how everything worked. And then when he explained to me the intake and the exhaust stroke on the motor, it opened up my eyes as to why I was getting the distributors in wrong, because I'd always have it 180 degrees off.
Yeah.
Sean knows this because he
Yeah.
almost blew up a car that way.
Well, I did.
But
Yeah.
ever since he taught me that, I never, ever have done that wrong. I've put them in
Yeah.
Chryslers and Fords and everything out there.
Yeah.
He also had a metal lathe and was able to do lathe work. And he had a small Craftsman lathe, but I would go over there and he'd say, "Well, I'm going to show you how the theory of cutting, you know, and here's this book. You read this book." And it talked about metal and how to cut metal. Opened up my eyes as to, you know, and one thing he said, "Larry," he said, "you're not working with wood. You're working with steel." He said, "You got to be patient with it." So I was. And he would turn me loose on the lathe, and he'd say, "Oh, you got it going. Oh, no, don't feed it in that far, you know," or something, you know. And I can remember him spending that time with me, and he taught me all about how to advance the cam.
Yeah.
And I did all that work just before I went to Nationals with that 427 Chevrolet I had. That's why I think it ran as good as it did,
Yeah.
because of the stuff that he told me to do, you know. But this guy, I love him like a brother, just like I do Eddie, you know.
Yeah. You know, I've got a friend of mine I was in the Navy with that kind of took me under his wing and kind of showed me the same thing.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, and I still talk to him to this day. But to your point, I mean, it's important to pass that stuff down. You know, I love it when people ask me questions. I'm happy to tell you anything I know. You know, absolutely.
And Marshall would order all my race parts, and we get them wholesale through
Grocery store.
Honest Charlie. And I think he told you all about the Honest Charlie deal.
Yeah.
And all the logos on the Coke box down there. And, you know, he got my Hilburn for me. He got my Vertex mag.
He was your pusher man.
All the stuff I needed
No,
for
I
race
had a
stuff.
speed shop. But
That's
I
a
didn't-
speed
I
grocery
didn't-
shop.
I didn't make any. It wasn't to make money.
He didn't make
It
a
was to get
dime
hot
off
rod
of it.
stuff for all my buddies.
Yeah.
He
Hey.
didn't
But
make it.
I was a Vertex mag distributor. Now I made $10 on each one of them.
Bet you didn't know that, Larry.
But that was still $40
I didn't know
cheaper
that.
than Joe Hunt was selling them for
Wow.
in California.
That's why his car was always faster. He had
Yeah.
$40 more to put it.
Wow.
But Marshall was a real asset to everybody that
Yeah.
was racing, you know. And I mean, when he taught us, we taught other people
Yeah.
what he had
exactly.
taught us. And that's how that was the spirit of that Memphis Rodders club. And when I first got in there, I didn't think I was fast enough to get in that club because your car had to run, buddy. I mean, you know. Yeah. And we had our meetings over at Ray Gammon's over there on Summer by Parkway, and it was upstairs. You had a stairway that went upstairs, and when you went before the board or the members, you had to tell them what kind of car you had, how fast your car was, what you did, what your intentions were, and all this other stuff. And then they made you leave the room, and they either voted you in or they voted you out. And there was some that weren't voted in. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So it was a tough club to get in.
Was it majority? Was it majority, or did everybody have to say yes?
Well, let me tell you something about that. Throughout the years, now you remember the Rodders really started back in the 40s.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to do nothing. You just had to be interested. And we became all buddies, and we grew and all. But then as things changed, we put on the shows, and then we put on the drag races. But then as things changed, the administration changed, and they wanted to concentrate strictly on racers or guys that really were the cream, not just let everybody in.
Right.
And that's when they had strict restrictions.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to make, 2 or 3 meetings in a row. And if somebody died, it's the only reason you could miss one. Or you'd have to start over again.
Yeah, it was.
That's the way it was, because it meant something to be a Memphis Rodder.
Yeah.
It wasn't just something that,
And we'd race, and the guys from California would come through here, and when Marshall owned we owned the store and the grocery store and the cafeteria. We would eat there just about every day. I mean, I would go there just about every day to eat.
Yeah.
And some of the guys would come in, like Don Gartless would come in, drop in.
Wow.
When they were passing through
all
town.
those guys, Carrie Macinas and Garlitz would come through Memphis and all. And they'd all come to lunch down at my
They'd always come in to sit and talk with us and visit with us, you know.
Wow.
So cool.
And
very cool.
Same circle, you know. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I'd do the same.
Yeah.
we were close with those guys, you know. I mean, and then some of the guys would come in here and think that they could outrun us, and we'd send them right back home. You know.
And then they started driving around Memphis.
Memphis was an uphill track. It was
How we coming on time?
1 degree.
Oh, we ain't worried about time.
It was 1
Yeah,
degree.
we're about an hour in.
Yeah.
We're good.
We're so good.
Well,
Yeah.
last thing we want.
Oh yeah, we got.
Larry
We got.
Oh
plenty
yeah,
of
we
time.
got time.
Yeah.
Well, since we're veering off for a second, we talked a little bit about otherworldly things. I wanted to get to that because the UFO thing.
Do what now?
The UFO thing. You guys had rivalry garages.
There
and
was
stuff
2
like
garages.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like competitive, but anyway, over at my garage, my group had started getting into these radio control model airplanes. And I'm being serious about it. The big ones with chainsaw motors and stuff like that.
Wow.
And we had a lot of experience. Well, then that's when there were a lot of UFO sightings, and they turned out to be hot air balloons.
Okay.
I was
And
wondering.
they were really thinking on that. Well, Wilbanks, over at his garage, they were trying to make them, but they never could get one off the ground. And anyway, I gave them a couple of hints. They were making their flame source too light. And what you would do, you would get a laundry sack.
Yeah.
And you put florist wire around the bottom.
Okay.
And then you'd make an X with florist wire. Well, then you'd put your heat source in there, and then you'd try and put a candle in there. Or Eddie and them, we were trying to make it and put a can of that Sterno, that canned
Oh, the food warmer.
But it was too heavy.
Too heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know, we didn't think of it, but we found it somewhere. We would get a cotton ball and put in there, and we would melt wax, a candle, on it, and then douse it with lighter fluid to get it burning. Well, it get a lot of heat instantly, and boy, they just take off really quick.
I was wondering where we were going with this.
But anyway,
Sounds like arson, but all right.
anyway, they issued us a challenge. We're gonna have a meet, and I'm gonna tell you where it was with the hot air balloons. It was at the interstate in Mount Moriah. And I think the Chevrolet dealers are there. Well, it used to be a hole down in there.
All right.
Yeah.
We go beat down in that hole because there was getting a lump of publicity now. The cops were kind of a little bit irritated about it.
So you were down at the Chuck Hutton Gully.
Yeah. Well, anyway, my buddies and I, we made a couple of super balloons. Instead of getting a laundry sack, we used a model airplane, the heat guns and everything, and we made some monster balloons. And man, you'd really put a heat source in. Well, we put up a few. Eddie Wilbanks, they never could get one in the air. We put up. Well, anyway, we put up this monster, and it floats over the interstate in Mount Moriah. And
It was on the news.
and I mean, the traffic stopped and everybody's pointing. And the thing, I don't know if you've never seen one, it looks eerie. I mean, it's just up there.
It's a Foo Fighter.
And, yeah. And then what's strange, when it burns out, as the fire goes down, it looks like it's speeding away. Well, anyway, this one floated over the interstate a while, and then finally it
Right over the
fell
interstate.
down.
Wow.
Well, we had so much fun. We had the other giant that we had made. So we'd go around at the drive-in movie, behind the drive-in movie where they had access to the Wolf River Trail and the motorcycle.
Yeah.
We'd get in there. And we really got greedy. And boy, we really doused that thing.
Oh, no.
Well, it takes off, and it's kind of heavy, and it floats over the drive-in movie, and all this wax and all burning is dropping off on the car.
Oh no.
Got dog in there, called the fire department and the police department and everything.
Tell them about
It
Bill
didn't
Murphy.
I
do
think we
any
should
real
probably
damage.
stop right there,
It didn't
guys.
do any real damage, but we didn't stay around.
I'm sure you didn't.
It was going to come out.
Tell them about Bill Murphy's when he got
About
up.
what?
When that one started coming back down in your garage and he got up there. The one that had the acetylene in
Oh,
it.
the one that,
Yeah, tell them about that. Bill Murphy.
hell, I done forgot.
Hot lips.
we, there was this guy, boy, he was really a screwball. He was real eager.
If
but
he
didn't
took
have
his
a lot of
shoes
sense.
off, if he took his shoes off in the car
Oh,
when
man,
you were
he'd
traveling,
never
you would
take a
throw
bath.
up. His feet stunk
This
terribly
was the
bad.
early days. We would get a condom and fill it. We tried to fill it with acetylene. We didn't have enough sense to know acetylene's too heavy, and we put a fuse on it. And we'd like fuse. We'd get up on the
Oh my God! Oh, I know
roof
what's
of
gonna
the
happen.
garage, and we'd push the thing off. And one time we got up there and we pushed the thing off, and if it got very far away, boy, when it burned, it'd go, and then all that black stuff would come tumbling down. Well, we pushed it off, and we're up on my garage, and it's really highly peaked. Well, the wind blowed it right back over, and it goes off right over our head. And we got all that black carbon and everything on it. But
Bill Murphy's got up there and tried to push it away, and right when he did, the damn thing blew up.
blew up.
That's hilarious.
Was a guy.
I'm glad I didn't know you back then. I'd have probably gotten in some trouble with you.
You
guys.
like stuff like that.
we got in some trouble.
People don't do
sometimes.
that anymore.
Oh,
you
they
know?
do. They just-
Everything's so straight laced now.
Yeah, well, yeah. Now
You
now
know,
you
if
go
you
to
tease
jail
somebody,
for stuff.
you
know?
only tease people that you really care about.
Oh,
You
yeah.
don't do it to strangers or nothing like that.
Right. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think, now, even kind of when I make remarks like that, some people that I've known recently,
Yeah.
and they take offense to it.
Well, that's changing times.
Yeah.
I
it really
believe
is.
it is.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
it was a long time before I understood. So finally I just quit altogether. I don't know.
I wanted to say one thing
Yes, sir.
I've set up a GoFundMe account for him, and Sean helped me, and it's gathered some momentum. But I've got a goal set of $100,000 that I'm hell bent on trying to raise for him. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Eddie, when he got out of high school, he went to work for Holiday Inn, Innkeeper Supply. It was out on Lamar Avenue. And he was doing really good with his job, and he'd gotten 2 or 3 pretty nice promotions. And he came to me and he said, we'd eat late. We're eating lunch. He said, I got to tell you something. He said, see what you think about it. And he said, I'm thinking about leaving my job. And I said, Eddie, why would you leave your job? And he said, I said, you got a better job? He said, no. He said, I just want to start working out of my house. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said, Eddie, I said, you need to think about this. Because I said, you'll be the sole provider. And I said, you won't have any insurance. And, you know, it's going to depend on you to get out there and work every day to get through this. And he said, I'll never forget what he told me. He said, you know, they said, the good Lord will take care of me and take care of Betty. He said, I'll be fine. Mm-hmm. That's what he told me. And that was 50 or 60 years ago. I mean, God, it's been a long time.
Wow.
And
you got to remember then, insurance wasn't a lot. I mean, that's when everybody was really getting into it.
And because he didn't work for anybody for any length of time, he never paid any money into Social Security.
Social Security, that was the best.
So he only gets a benefit of about $300 a month. You can't live on $300 a month. And now he's unable to do any work at all in the shop.
Yeah.
And if there's any time that this guy needs help, he needs it. And what the other thing that I gave some thought to, you know, I had gotten kind of worn out with the Rodders reunion simply because I'd done it for so long. I did it 25 years, and I don't want to ever give up on it or anything like that. But what I did the first year that I had it, I raised money for St. Jude, and you know, that was good. But in the theme of things, they get some really healthy contributions.
Right.
And we weren't raising but maybe $7,000 a year, and it didn't. I mean, you know, I know it helped. Every bit helps.
Every bit
don't
helps.
misunderstand me. But
Right.
I said, well, maybe I'll do it. And I got involved with the burn center. And I went to Cincinnati, and I saw some of those burned children. And, oh, my God, if you ever go there and you look at that, you won't leave there the same person that you were when you got there.
Yes, sir.
And I've helped them since 1971 raise money. And
Wow.
this year, I want to change it, and I want the money to go in a fundraising thing to Eddie Wilbanks.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome.
And I want to get back involved, whether I MC or whoever does what. But I want to help you guys with two things. One, the audio, if we go back to Art and Speed, and also the video. I know y'all had some problems with that last year. And
Yes, sir.
I'm making, Marshall and I are working, I'm going to make a full-blown video about Eddie and his story.
Excellent.
Awesome.
To run.
Very
And
cool.
I can't think of anybody else that I would want to do this for. You know, I mean, there's some Rodders that have had some major illnesses, but they've been financially sound enough to take care of themselves. And Eddie's not in that position.
Yeah.
And I was with him all day yesterday. I picked him up. I'm building a 55 Thunderbird, and I ordered an Art Morrison frame for it. And it came in. I waited 5 months on it, but Eddie said, have you got that frame yet? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I want to see it when you get it. So I called him yesterday and picked him up at his house. He came out there. I turned the air on in the shop and had some chairs sitting out there. And Chris Rhodes and I talk to him, and he was there for 4 hours yesterday.
Oh,
But he went to the doctor today, and his cancer is spread, and they have little or not much they can do for him, but we can do something for him.
Yes, sir.
yeah.
And we can help him financially. And a lot of guys want to give money, but they don't know how to do it on computer. Some of the guys don't even know how to turn a computer on. Okay, so that was the purpose of the fundraiser: is put some cash in here.
Yes,
you
sir.
know, get and we'll see what we can do. I think the GoFundMe account is at 22,000 roughly. I
Yes,
don't
sir.
know.
Pretty close.
It took off really fast, but it slowed down, and a lot of that is because people don't know how to do that,
Yeah.
and they want to help, but they don't really know how to do it. So
Well, we've also got to get a little vigilant about putting it up there and getting
Reunion
if it's
will
in front of
make it-
people's faces
They'll
enough.
make it easy for anybody that wants to.
Sure.
You pass the
Yeah.
hat around at the
At the
Absolutely.
reunion.
and we can call it whatever we want to call it. I don't care what we call
I
it.
think we ought to call it
It's
Eddie
just
Wilbanks.
Rodders reunion. Yeah.
But I'd like for you guys to join forces with me
Absolutely.
and try to see that this happens for Eddie, because it's very important to me. Okay, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We're all in.
he's
Yeah,
just he's just such a good friend. You don't realize till you have a friend that close to you when they get sick what it's like.
Yeah.
It's no fun, I can tell you that.
Yes, sir.
No.
And there's nothing I can do for him except help him financially. That's all I can do.
Yes, sir. We're on board.
Yeah.
So
We are.
We're
on
there
board.
for sure.
and you guys have, I came to you guys to help me with the GoFund thing, because
Yes, sir.
I'm okay with it, but I'm not. I could have probably gotten through it, but Sean,
Well, he's the one who set it up. That Sean.
well,
set
whoever
it up.
did it, I don't know who did it.
Yeah.
but one of you guys is a hell of a lot smarter than I am.
I was gonna say I did.
And,
I did the writing, and he did all the setting
but-
up of it.
but,
so, yeah.
I'm trying to, keep his name out there and keep going. I went to Chevy Club, which I'm a member of, Monday night of this week, and I read what you wrote off of GoFund. And by the time I got back to my seat, I had people shoving $100 bills at me,
Yeah.
which I took to Eddie. So people are compassionate, and they want to help somebody like that. They just need to be told.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
We need to tell our story.
Yes. Absolutely.
So that's all I had, guys.
Yeah, and I think I think one of the things too that maybe we need to say about Eddie though is one of the things that you talked about to us was that he wasn't. It's not just a Memphis Rodder. I mean, like all the stuff that he has done since he's been working out of his house, for dirt track racers and for boaters and
Well,
motorcyclists and
Airplanes.
That's a good thing to talk
He built
about.
the exhaust for one of the guy that flew around the world nonstop. Who was that?
Lynn? No. I was
Oh,
like,
one of the-
No, he didn't.
I was like, no, that's
Anyway,
different. Yeah.
one of the experimental planes before. Eddie built the guy is having trouble getting the exhaust built to count it in the way, and Eddie built the exhaust for that.
Yeah.
And he builds a bunch of motor mounts. People changing motors and putting different motors in different airplanes, and they'll send the drawings to Eddie, and he'll make the mounts and everything. And he worked for FedEx. They developed a lot. They were having problem with some of the fuel systems on the Falcons that they were buying from France, I think. And it was a fuel problem. Well, I forgot his name, but a good friend of Eddie's got Eddie over there, and Eddie looked at the whole thing, and he figured how to alter the tanks to do something to it. But, he just worked for everybody.
Yeah.
And one thing about Eddie, now most people that they got friends, and they got friends maybe not friends, and they got some people that don't like them. I have never in my life talked to anybody that did not like Eddie Wilbanks.
Yes, sir.
I second that.
Yeah.
He doesn't
Never.
ever have a bad thing to say about anyone.
But he's such a relaxed,
And
laid back dude, I mean, like,
it might helped too because I kind of cut off with him. But what happened and how we separated in our partnership with the car is he got his own dragster, okay, and it was a Logie chassis. And Eddie was so different that he didn't want a Chevrolet. Everybody was winning races with Chevrolet. He wanted a Ford.
Yes, sir.
So he bought a Gurney Westlake Ford motor.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And he had numerous conversations with Dan Gurney about that motor, personal conversations with him. Eddie, talked to a lot of people that you'd never imagined that he talked to. And he did research work in his garage for Kawasaki and Yamaha. In his garage. Okay, here's this big Kawasaki and Yamaha company, and he's doing research work and building aluminum swing arms and doing all this work. You know the monoshocks that go underneath the back of the dirt bikes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was Eddie's invention.
Yeah.
He invented that. That was his job. He did that.
He
And
did-
Yamaha stole it from him.
He developed the one instead of the shock in the spring.
Right.
It used a pneumatic and it had a diaphragm and the pressures.
So baffling.
And then he figured that out.
Okay.
Wow.
Kind of like an oil shock, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
crazy.
not believe the people he talked to, and he's got the other thing that is going on with him is he's never had a car that he could take his wife to a street rod meet or a car show or anything, except one. He had a Studebaker. No, he had an international pickup truck.
Okay.
And it was patina looking, was rusty kind of like, and it didn't have a bed on it, it had a flat bed on the back. And he and Betty drove that, and I was so excited that he had a car that they could both come in.
Yeah. Yeah.
He sold the daggum thing, and then he turned around and bought this Cobra from Jimmy Corzine here in town,
Yeah.
and it was a kit car.
Yeah.
And he's had that car forever.
Yeah.
And about 2 years ago, I called him up and I said, Eddie, when are you going to finish that Cobra? He said, well, I've been working on it, but he doesn't work on it because it's something for himself.
Yeah. Too busy helping everybody
Yeah.
else.
He'd rather do something for someone else.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of person that he is. And I encouraged him to do the work on the thing, and you saw the rear end that he built for that thing.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's an 8.8 Ford rear end, and he narrowed it. He made the housings. He did everything on it, So Mike Abbott is offered to try to help him finish that car, and I'd like to be involved with it. But
Yes, sir.
it's going to be hard to please Eddie.
I was going to say,
with the way that you do it,
Did you-
because
did
he's
you
got
pitch it?
drawings after drawing
Yeah.
after drawing of the things that he wanted to
I'm
do.
sure
with
he's
that thing. He keeps
re-engineering.
changing
Yeah.
his mind.
Re-engineering everything.
So
Did
you
you
he
pitch-
said if I can just tell somebody how to get it on wheels, then you guys could finish it. So
Okay.
that's in the works too.
Okay, so
Yes,
you did pitch it to him,
Yeah.
to Eddie,
So-
and
Okay.
he's
Yeah, and
He's
Mike's going to have to.
accepted it.
That's a tough job now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'cause
Yeah.
he's a gearhead, and he's always thinking about things like
So
that.
I had passed Marshall this card. I don't have a whole lot. I keep a little money clip. I don't have a big wallet, and I
Yeah.
passed him. I keep a very small list of things, and I'll put it right there. I kept Eddie's. That's how Eddie and I actually met, and I kept that because I run a dual overhead cam
Let me see that car.
Where'd you get that?
from Eddie. He gave it to me. We were at a shop night, and I didn't know him. But we got to talking about the Cobra drivetrain,
Is that right?
and because I've got one, I bought a whole car that had been wrecked, 98 Cobra.
Was it a genuine or a kit?
No, it was no, not an AAC car, just a Mustang Cobra.
Mustang Cobra.
And this ties into Eddie and I meeting,
I got you.
and he had. Anyway, we got to talking about dual overhead cam, and Sean Barrington runs. He's got the 5.4 in his.
Yeah.
So we got to talking, and he said, "Yeah, I've got a Cobra R drivetrain that I'm not using. It's under a tarp or whatever." And I was, what are you doing with that? And I so much so that he and I had that conversation, but he was entertaining me to the point where I found myself in the parking lot across the street at the other where his little BMW was parked, and he's like, "Well, here's my card. Just take my card. Call me when you're serious."
And he's so enthused on something that he really likes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you take him something to do, he'll probably do it within a reasonable amount of time. Now,
Yeah.
the mundane rote stuff that people take him, the ordinary stuff to do, he'll say, "Oh yeah, I'll get it," and
Yeah.
he'll sit it over the side.
Well,
And it's almost like in limbo.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then, but when he's inspired, it seems like he's all in. You know.
Yeah.
He's had to call people to have that work picked back up because he just
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah, I heard.
And he's turning down any future work because I
yeah.
just don't see him doing it. You
Yeah.
know, he's he got his report today, and there's not a lot that they can do other than some injections and stuff for him. So you know, and he knows. Eddie told me, he said, you know, when I told him I loved him and that we were such good friends, and I said, you know, you and I have never had a bad word with one another. And he just sort of stopped and he looked at me, kind of frowned, and he says, you know, you're right.
Yeah.
And then when I got ready to leave him, he rolled down the window. His wife was driving him in the car, and he looked at me. He said, Larry, he said, you know, one of us has got to go first. He said, it might be my turn. That's where we left.
Hey, you know, the first time that I met, you know, him, I was kind of nervous because, you know, he's Eddie Wilbanks. Everybody knows who he is.
Oh, sure.
And he made it real easy for me. You know, we picked up and talked like I had known him for years. And oddly enough, we sat and watched a dirt track race. You know, I think the first time it was over West Memphis.
Oh,
when we
yeah.
went over there, so-
He'll find a way to communicate with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
What,
and
no matter what you do,
Yeah.
he will find a way.
Nobody told me who he was.
Yeah. Nobody.
Nobody told me who he was. I was sitting there talking, and I was actually poking fun at Brereton's car.
Everybody's always poking fun of my car.
Well, and it was, and I was like, oh yeah, I can't remember. Somebody said something about putting modern drivetrains in older cars, and I piped up, and then he said, well, I've got one of those, and I didn't know I thought he was just a cool guy that was at a shop night, and like I said, I find myself at his car talking about a Cobra R drivetrain that he's got. Possibly trying to buy it from. I'll take your card.
Everything always turns. Every conversation that you have always turns to buying something.
I got a lot of stuff for sale, but that's another podcast.
Always something.
Wheeler dealer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah, we're doing good.
Oh, all right.
We're doing good.
Cool.
Well, Larry, tell us, not to switch gears a little bit, but tell us about your Thunderbird.
Yeah,
you know, we all want to know.
Oh yeah.
I enjoy telling my side of things, you know.
Yes,
and,
sir.
And you know, all these years I've honored all these people in the Memphis Rodders,
Yeah.
from Larry Coleman to Bill Taylor to Larry Rays to Joe Lunati to, you know, him, all these people.
Right.
And I've never done anything for Eddie and myself because I felt like I'd be pretty self-centered if I did something for myself. And it didn't matter, you know, but this is the time to talk about Eddie, you
Yes,
know,
sir.
and
Yeah.
what his life has been and what he's done, because he's such a good guy.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Oh, that's amazing. But Larry, you have. So yeah, he was asking about your Thunderbird that you have that you're working on now, the Thunderbird,
Yeah.
and then but you also have a really pretty 57, don't you?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
got a
What else you got?
57 that 150 that I bought in '09, and I've had it. And I actually put the car together. It's got an LS3 in it with a 6-speed and a 9-inch Ford positive traction, and I changed up the suspension quite a bit, and I got it to the point where it was buildable, and then I got into this cowboy fast draw shooting, and
What?
I did that for 7 years.
Really?
I fought I mean,
Wow.
I shot nationally and
Did you
worldwide.
Did you do that with Gerald Thompson? Did you know Gerald?
Oh, Gerald died. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you-
Mississippi Tom was. his
yeah, I
name.
mean he was huge into
Mine,
that.
mine was hot
For a minute.
lefty because I'm left-handed. But I'm not doing that anymore because I had a injury to my eye and my vision's not as good.
Yeah.
But my grandson, he's so much like me, it scares me. But he's really into cars. He's going to school, FAA school. Wants to be a jet mechanic and not pursue this business that I have here. And he said, "Pop, we got to finish that car." So I started working on it, and he helped me, and we got it done. And I had my second car was a '56 Thunderbird, and my uncle found it for me up in Chicago, and my folks were from Chicago. And anyway, I got it, and I was sort of ashamed to drive it because it was pink, and it had a black top, and a pink car just didn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
So I didn't drive it until I got it painted. I painted the candy apple red, and I drove it to school and everything. Well, this is another Wilbanks story, but he wanted a Corvette. So my uncle found him a '57 Corvette, and it was bronze and cream color. And it had 2 Fords on it, if I remember right. And then we went up there and got it, and we drove it home, and we had the top down, and we got so sunburned coming back from Chicago in that thing. We stopped and got paper bags and put them over our head and cut holes in there.
Eddie
where we
talked
could
about
see
this
out.
story. If you watch the other episode, he's talking
Eddie
about
and I did, and he had it had the 9-fin valve covers,
Yeah.
which you don't see many of those.
No.
He still has those 9-fin valve covers too. I've tried to talk him
They
out of
didn't
it,
go
but
with
he-
the car. They
he
stayed
got
on
rid of
it.
them. And he put Hilburn. I'm not Hilburn, but a Rochester fuel injection on
Okay.
it. You know.
Fuely.
So
Nice.
that was a later car that he had, that, one of the last ones that he had. But Eddie and I have stayed in touch with each other, even though he got really into motorcycles pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And I like motorcycles, and I did all that too, but he spent a lot more time with it than I did.
Yeah.
He's got a few rare bikes,
Yeah.
and he's explaining these things to me, and the mechanics of these motorcycles are so far over my head.
Yeah, he welded up so many frames and made so many motorcycles, it's not even funny.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
International.
He was
What was
just,
that? There was a rare car that came over, Italian car or something.
yeah.
Well,
He's got a,
That Lancia.
Yeah.
He bought my daddy bought that in Italy in
He's got a-
'61 and brought it back over.
Yeah.
And then when the family was through with it, then Eddie
Yeah.
bought it.
Hey, that's
and,
it.
And they had it a while.
That's right.
he's also got a Morgan
Really?
Oh.
in his shop.
He was-
Not the shop, the garage by the house.
Wow.
He's got a Morgan sitting in there.
Everything but the doors.
Failed to mention that last time.
Yeah, everything but the door.
I went with him to get it. He had swapped something for it,
yeah,
and the guy couldn't find the doors.
Oh.
Now they're fairly simple. Those Morgans are made out of wood.
Yeah.
And then the doors are flat, and they got a wood frame, and it's covered with aluminum. And Eddie's telling he could make them without any trouble at all.
Yeah.
wow.
But it's one of those things. He gets to a point in a project that he don't want to fiddle with, and that's when he sets it aside and starts something new.
Yeah, I think he had kind of talked about once the problem has an answer, he kind of loses interest with it. I get it.
I
get
do
it.
that all the time.
ADD,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
ADD. That's a typical car guy right there.
Right.
Fart.
How many kids does Eddie have? I've talked to one, Troy. How many children does he have?
Eddie,
Yeah,
he has 2 sons.
2 sons. Gotcha.
Yeah, Eddie Jr. and Troy
Okay, gotcha. I've yet to meet those guys yet. So.
that we know about.
Oh yeah.
But he knows
That's
about
not exactly right.
Yo.
There might be some
I don't want to talk about
There
that.
might be
Oh,
some
okay.
I'll tell you all.
Yeah, off camera kind of.
One of those.
I knew we were going to get a Marshall naughty story. We got
The naughty parties.
the naughty parties.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's too funny.
Well, guys, it's probably a good time to take it out of here.
I think so.
So before we roll, what's everybody got going on? Sean, you're getting ready to do some traveling?
Man, yeah, I'm heading out actually tomorrow to go to Du Quoin for the Street Machine Nationals.
Okay.
See all my pro street friends and all that. So
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually going up and going to have fun.
Gotcha. Okay.
So at least during the day. At
Gotcha.
night, at night it's still gonna be fun. But I plan to do a bunch of night shoots like I did last year,
Right.
Because everybody was pretty excited about the
Yeah.
night shots and stuff. So I've got quite a few people lined up already to do that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much just sitting in a dark parking lot drinking beer and putting the camera on a long exposure and,
It's right
and
down,
lighting it.
right
So,
down your alley, man.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's gonna be really cool. Looking forward to it.
Well, Javier and I are neck deep in the building, so that's a
I'm
mess.
still filthy. I'm not going to apologize.
Yeah. What's
And
this?
if there's a smell, I apologize for that
Yeah.
for everyone here.
What's this about a broken CNC machine?
It's
Oh,
it's
dude,
a mess.
it was
Let's just not go there. It's bad.
You just can't even talk about it?
it's
so
catastrophic,
bad. It is.
but
bad.
it's all right. We're gonna fix it.
Did
Yeah.
it just eat itself?
Well, every time something goes horrifically wrong, I say, Sean, where do we work? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, do we not work in a fab shop? Can we not just fix that?
Oh, I can put it back together.
We-
I
yeah.
just didn't want to.
I know. It's well, it's this whole deal is fighting us tooth and nail, but it's getting done, and if we have to muscle it in,
It
that's
is.
what happens. So
It is.
projects are already underway in the new shop.
Nice.
So I guess before we go away, I'm going to mention this one more time. The GoFundMe site that we have set up for Eddie Wilbanks, I'll put that in the description of the video. So when you're watching this, just scroll down and click under description, and there'll be a link that you can click on it.
That'd be wonderful.
For all of the out of town people that watch this.
Yep.
So
And of course, it'll be on the Facebook page as well.
yeah,
On the Hot Rod
absolutely.
Blues podcast Facebook page.
And
so.
I would say start following the reunion when it gets announced, because
Yeah.
as
but-
you just heard tonight, that's going to be in honor of Eddie. So
and to that point though, guys, it's June already. So the reunion, it ain't that far off.
No.
It really
No,
it's time
it's
to
right
start.
around the corner.
It'll be
We got
here
to
before
get
you
working
know
on
it.
You
Yeah.
got it. You got it. So
Yep.
we've got some.
Well, my car, my Fairlane is at Art and Speed right now, so I got to go back over there.
you can just leave it there until the show, right?
Yeah, might as well. But
Yeah.
no, they're doing. I'm getting air conditioning in it, boys.
good for you.
Oh, I heard,
Finally.
yeah.
That was it. I was
Good for
like,
you.
you know what, man? Here, just do it. I'm never gonna get to it. Like I got to do it. And
It's
then,
105 degrees in Memphis, and that's what it took for you to.
Yeah, I'm driving back and forth all
finally
the time.
do
And
that.
it's like, yeah, I got to get it done. And and then of course I gave him a list of like 7 or 8 other things that needed to be done on it. So I was like, hey, while it's up on the lift,
That's
if you
not
just
what we
take a look
agreed
at
to.
this stuff, yeah. He's like, all right, whatever.
Wow.
But I had punched a hole in the exhaust pipe, and so they welded that up for me.
Well, good.
Matt?
Yeah.
He doesn't get a whole lot of time. What's
What's
going on over there?
What
I
are you
know.
doing over there,
I
Matt?
know what's going on. I just want him to talk about it because he's part of the group.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you for letting us come out.
Yeah.
Thank
And-
you for having us.
And it like always, it's always a good time when you guys are in the room.
Well,
so
thank you.
we'll fly the Eddie Wilbanks flag, and we will get this done for him.
Good
Yeah.
deal. Good deal.
Excellent.
Yeah, y'all make sure to click on that link in the description and
Like and subscribe.
Yep,
Like
like,
and
subscribe, all that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely donate to that guy.
Help our buddy Eddie.
He's great.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us, Javier.
No, we're not doing any vintage.
We're
voice.
not doing
no,
anything. We're just
going
gonna
to leave it with Eddie
we're-
and let that roll out.
We're going to say good night.
We can
you
do
guys,
that.
you guys take care. Thank
night,
you for
everybody.
watching.
Yeah.